Hello, everyone, to all my viewers and listeners. So, state of Louisiana is known for folklore, legend, and most of all, the paranormal, right? So, I'm sure many of you have heard of this before, and maybe some of you haven't. But have you ever heard of the LaLaurie mansion? The LaLaurie mansion was ran by a lady by the name of Madame Delphine LaLaurie and her husband Leonard LaLaurie. They were slave owners in the 1800s. Madame LaLaurie was born on March 19, 1787. Her maiden name, or her real name I should say, was Marie Delphine McCarthy. Her family immigrated from Ireland in the 1700s to the state of Louisiana in the United States. Madame LaLaurie was married 3 times, but it wasn't until she married her third husband, Mr. Leonard LaLaurie, that she had adopted the LaLaurie last name. While married to Mr. Leonard LaLaurie, Madame LaLaurie purchased property at 1140 World Street in New Orleans, Louisiana. It was there that she had a 2-story mansion built with slave quarters attached. During that time period, when slavery was going on in Louisiana, slavery was actually under French rule. And although it was cruel under French rule, it wasn't as cruel as slavery under British rule. Madame LaLaurie and her husband owned slaves, but they subjected them to cruel and harsh, unusual treatment for slaves during that time period in Louisiana. It was said that Madame LaLaurie and her husband, Leonard LaLaurie, their slaves were unkept and unusually haggardly looking for slaves in New Orleans at that time. So the LaLauries were known to torture and abuse their slaves in unconventional ways prior to unaliving them. It was said that they would take their slaves to the attic where they would implement this cruel and unusual treatment and torture. And it was also said that if you saw a slave go into the attic, you never seen them ever again. On one account, some of the townspeople and bystanders saw an 8-year-old slave girl fall off the roof of the LaLaurie mansion. It was said that she was brushing Madame LaLaurie's hair, and the brush got snagged and caught. And Madame LaLaurie became angry, and she chased the little girl to whip her. And the little girl ran away from her and fell off the roof to her death. Under the LaLaurie's ownership, 12 slaves were documented to be unalived. So Madame LaLaurie and her husband, Mr. Leonard LaLaurie, were both charged and found guilty of illegal cruelty to slaves. They were forced to sell 9 of their slaves. As a way to get her slaves back into her mansion, Madame LaLaurie sold her slaves to a cousin, who in turn gave them back to her. On April 10, 1834, a fire broke out inside of the royal mansion. It was said to be started by a slave who was chained to the stove. She says she started the fire because she was afraid of being taken and tortured in the attic. She knew that once you got to the attic, you were never to be seen again. In response to the fire and their hatred for the LaLauries, the townspeople and bystanders broke into the mansion. They destroyed everything inside of the mansion and tried to ensure that everyone made it out of the mansion safely so they wouldn't end up dying in the fire. Once the town people finally broke into the attic, what they saw was just horrified them. They found slaves with suspended, torn, and stretched limbs, wearing metal collars, and who had been horribly mutilated. Some of them were still alive. One of the slaves in the attic had been beaten so badly and suffered head trauma she could barely talk. It was said that Madame LaLaurie escaped the mansion and fled to France so that she wouldn't have to suffer the consequences of her actions. But others say differently. Some say that the townspeople and bystanders who broke in actually unalived Madame LaLaurie. After being set on fire and being vandalized by the townspeople and bystanders, the LaLaurie mansion burned down to ruins. The mansion was rebuilt later on throughout the years. However, they said that the newly built model looked completely different from the original model that Madame LaLaurie had built once she purchased the property. Since it's been rebuilt, the mansion has served a number of purposes. It's been used as a luxury apartment building twice. It's been used as a furniture store, a music conservatory, and it's even been used as a detention center for troubled juvenile youth. As of today, the LaLaurie mansion is said to have high paranormal activity, and it's used today as a historical site where they do paranormal haunted tours. People come from all over to witness this paranormal phenomenon. Some say it's quite an experience. Would you ever visit the LaLaurie mansion? Thank you to all my viewers, listeners, and subscribers. If you are new to my channel and you like my video, please comment, subscribe, and or like for more content.